I think walking in the Spirit is not like a trance or a vision. I just think it means walking by the impulse or by the motivation of the Spirit that you have on the inside of you. Now, you see, when you became a Christian, when you received Jesus into your life, He didn't just leave you the way you were. He didn't just say, well, sign the roll here and come every Sunday and sit on a pew. He changed something on the inside of you. Something real changed. He said it to Nicodemus in the 3rd chapter of John this way: that which is born of the flesh is flesh. And by the way, where did our flesh come from? Well, your flesh, your body, the physical nature of you came from your parents. We know how it all works, you know. The husband and wife produce the child, and the physical attributes, the flesh, come from the parents, and theirs came from their parents, and theirs came from their parents, right? Do we understand that? And back and back and back it goes to the first parents, Adam and Eve. Well, the unfortunate thing is Adam and Eve produced the human race after they'd sinned and lost something that they had with God. And they transmitted to all the rest of the human race something called the flesh. And here Paul says that the flesh lusts against the Spirit. Well, when Jesus comes along, He told Nicodemus, that which is born of the flesh is flesh. But listen now, that which is born of the Spirit is spirit. And when Jesus comes into our lives, He doesn't change the flesh, He changes the spirit. He puts a new spirit on the inside of us. Your hair didn't change when you got saved. Your eyes didn't change. You know, your weight didn't change. I wish He would change all those things for us. But He changes the most important part of us, what's on the inside. He gives us a new spirit. And so here is the condition that we're in. We're living in a body of flesh, but we've got a new spirit on the inside, which is given to us by the Lord. A spirit in communion with the Lord. A spirit in fellowship with the Lord, given to us by Him. So Paul says in verse 16, walk in the Spirit. Or could I say it this way? Walk by the motivation of the Spirit. Walk by the power of the Spirit, and you'll not fulfill the lust of the flesh. Now here again is a place where a lot of people have a misconception. You know what most people think is, here's the thinking most people have. If I could just fight the flesh, if I could just really get serious, if I could just have a war with the flesh, and if I could just subdue and suppress the flesh, then I would be spiritual. Did you know most other religions in the world, that's what it's really all about. By fastings and by prayers and by denying the flesh and by even whipping and beating the body and by suppressing the flesh, that creates spirituality. But did you notice that's not what Paul says here? He doesn't say have a war with the flesh and then you'll be spiritual. He says walk in the Spirit, and as a byproduct you won't fulfill the lust of the lust is such an ugly word. Let's change it. Can we change it? Is that okay? Just for today. I want to change the word lust to desires. That's what lust is, strong desire. Would you agree? So go to the next verse for a second, Elliot. He says in the next verse, the flesh lusts, or let's say strong desire. The flesh has desires. Let's change it again. Want tos. You know what desire is? Something that I want to. The flesh has want tos. But he says the Spirit also has want tos. The flesh lusts against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh. In other words, the lust or want. In other words, your spirit has things it wants to do. Your spirit has want tos. Your spirit has desires. See? Now, we all know that the flesh has desires. But he doesn't say have a war with the flesh and try to suppress those desires. But what he does say, walk in the Spirit, or walk by, or listen to, or be motivated by the desires of your spirit. So your spirit has desires. Did you know that? Now, I hate to always do this because I don't want to use myself as an example, because I don't want you to think, well, he did that, so I got to. You know, we're all different. We're all walking with the Lord. But I don't want to, on the other hand, pick on anybody but myself. I can just say that I have this, it's almost a daily thing. You know, just yesterday, I hate to admit this, but, you know, I'm just as real as the next person. I was in a hurry, didn't have much time. You know, I have to drive the kids, you know, to piano lessons and get back home and get the next round. And listen, it is a real challenge when I'm home on Saturday mornings to get everybody where they're supposed to go. And I had to get to the bank. Elliot needed some cash for next week. And by the way, Elliot, we're glad that you're home with us this weekend. And anyway, I had to get to the bank and I had to put my paycheck in. I didn't have much time. So I zoom down there. I just got a few minutes. I pull in the drive-thru, and there's a car already there in the drive-thru. And I've got all these things. I need to go to the one right by the window, so I pull up to that close one, and they're just sitting there. And here's my thought. I wish they'd hurry up. And I'm kind of in my heart sort of, you know, I wouldn't say cursing the person in front of me, but being unhappy with them. Kind of being, What's wrong with them? I'm not really saying these things, but this is what I'm kind of thinking in my mind. Why don't they hurry up? I'm in a hurry here. I'm getting aggravated. They don't know it, of course, thankfully. They don't know it, but I'm sitting there getting aggravated about them. And then suddenly, in the midst of that, in the midst of me, getting aggravated in my mind, suddenly I'm aware that there's a different kind of want to, there's a different kind of desire from deeper in me. And I almost, in fact, yesterday I heard these words, bless and curse not. That came from Paul. I knew where that came from in Romans. That's the bad thing about reading it. Then it's all there coming back to you. I'm being facetious. It's a good thing to read it. But somewhere deeper in me, these words came, bless and curse not. And I realized, that's not right. I don't need to be sitting here getting aggravated with them. I should bless them. So instead of thinking bad things about them, I started thinking, God bless that person there. They've got their business to transact, and I'm just wishing well. I wish them well. I wish that I don't even know who it is. It's just a total stranger. But you see, what was happening there? Well, that first reaction, that was the flesh. In case you didn't know, that selfish, all about me. Why didn't everybody else hurry up and get out of my way? That's the flesh. I'm just saying, because I'm sure you don't have these experiences, but just in case you ever encountered. That's what the flesh, that's the way the flesh thinks. It's selfish, it's self-centered, it's all about me, everybody else get out of my way, me. That's the flesh. But Paul here says, what does he say? The Spirit has desires, the flesh has desires, but walk. What does it mean when he says walk in the Spirit? Walk is the way you put into motion your life. Walk is how you live your life. So when he says walk in the Spirit, he says listen to those desires of your spirit and act on those. Put those into practice, and not the desires that your flesh has, not those bad desires. See, if I would have kept listening to those desires of the flesh and those want-tos of the flesh, I might have started honking the horn after a while. And rolling that, hey, what's wrong up there? Usually I don't ever get that far. But see, here's the thing. You are in control of what you do in your life, and you can choose. If you're aware of it, you can choose to walk in the Spirit. You can choose to listen to those desires of your spirit and not the desires of the flesh. And Paul here says, if you'll walk by the Spirit, if you'll listen to those desires of your spirit and let those motivate you in the way you live, then you'll not fulfill the desires of the flesh. It's as though it ceases to function then. It can't express itself. Is that okay? Now, in conclusion, and I say that to give you a little hope, just encourage you a little bit. In conclusion, that means I just have one more in mind here. In conclusion, Matthew's Gospel, chapter 14, I want to give you a little incident in the life of Jesus and the Apostle Peter. Matthew 14, verse 22, to try to illustrate this point about walking with the Lord by faith. Walking with Jesus by faith and walking in the Spirit. And I'm using this as an illustration. Matthew's Gospel, chapter 14, verse 22. Matthew 14:22. And straightway Jesus constrained his disciples to get into a ship and go before him to the other side while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up into a mountain apart to pray. And when the evening was come, he was there alone. But the ship was now in the midst of the sea. See that Jesus is up praying on the mountain. He sent the disciples into a boat across the little water there. And now they're in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, and the wind was contrary. Now, you got the picture? The disciples are in the ship, and here's what they're experiencing. They're being tossed with the waves, and the wind is contrary. Just like in our lives, where we confront all kinds of different things that push us and toss us and are contrary to us. Now, that little illustration, that was just a little minor illustration about me being in the line at the bank and getting aggravated. That was a situation that, at the moment, was tossing me and being contrary to me. See, the disciples are in the ship, and the sea is tossing them, and contrary to them. They're experiencing things that are pushing and compelling and contrary, and the wind is whipping around, and the water is splashing in the boat, and their hair is blowing everywhere, and they're probably a little bit aggravated. Verse 25. In the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went unto them, walking on the sea. Now they're in a boat in the sea, in the midst of the sea, is what verse 24 said. They're in the midst of the sea, getting tossed, and the wind is contrary, but Jesus is walking on the sea. They see Jesus walking in a way that they didn't think was possible.